Gopinath, for giving this opportunity to share some of my understandings of the system of knowledge with which I have spent all my life. I was listening very carefully to Professor Narasimha, and I pray God that many more such minds are available in India in the fraternity of science. The India will change. That will be the real change in India. I do not know, I asked him that, don't you think that there should be a course component in all institutions on such theme? And he told me, he reported to me, I don't know, perhaps you may know, he said that in this very institution, he had already framed a course on history of Indian science and philosophy. That's what he told me. I do not know that is in use. People know about it or not, but he did that. But it should not happen only here. My request to all my colleagues and friends of the science faculty is this, that if possible, what about now the credit systems you have started? No? So any credit, if you can frame a course and make it available to the learners. Make it graded ones, so you can start from school level, college level, university level, we can do that. This will be a great service to the nation. We have created such a huge gap. It is unfortunate, and it is our moral responsibility to see that the gap is minimized. So this is just I will not be all the sessions. So it is kind of a suggestion that I want to make to all of you, that if you find the knowledge is valuable, let it be made available to one and all. And the best way to do it is to put it into the mainstream of education. And you can do this job. Well, I have one side story. You also have another side of story. But we can do it together. Now that comparison, the kind of a comparison that he made, and then the conclusion that he drew, it is this approach with full authentication. Our traditional training is like this. Namulam likhyate kinchit. We do not write anything without a proof, without a document in hand. Na anapekshitam uchya. Issues are to be taken for discourse. So Sutra, Bhashya, Vartika, Tatparya, so up to 10th century this has happened. This phase of development is known by the name Prachina Nyaya. And the dialogical mode was issue-centric. Issue is at the center. And you will see that by the time of 10th century, many questions were answered, but some remained, and even today they remain and will never be answered finally. Two issues were very prominently prevalent in the 10th century at the time of Udayanacharya. Udayanacharya wrote Parishuddhi. Udayanacharya from Mithila, he wrote 2 texts on 2 issues. One is Atma Siddhi, Atma Tattva Viveka, whole text. So if you want to have any dialogue or any exercise on consciousness today, is it not necessary for us to go into that text which has recorded all the questions and answers which of 1,000 years and theorized it and presented in the form of a full book called Atma Tattva Viveka of Udayanacharya. There was another issue on God, whether God exists. The issue is true even today. Even Astika Darshanas also did not, all of them did not accept God. No, but the Astik, by the by, does not mean one who believes in God. The meaning of Astika is one who has Shraddha in the Vedic thought, Pramanya in the Veda. So one who accepts the Vedic thought is an Astika. Even among them, the philosophers disagree that whether God is necessary for explaining everything, or we can explain everything without God. For example, Purva Mimamsa did not accept God. Now you heard that Sankhya, there was Nirishwara Sankhya. Vaisheshika in the beginning did not accept God. So even Astika Darshanas, you can see, those who had complete faith in the Vedic thoughts did not have place for God. But in Nyaya Shastra, right from the very beginning, right from Gautama, had created a space for God. And he kept on providing arguments after arguments after arguments, and ultimately had to write a complete book on 10th century by Udayanacharya called Nyaya Kusumanjali, exclusively on one issue, whether God exists or not. Now if someone wants to talk on God, should we talk only on a cup of tea? Or should we go and read the text and be acquainted with the arguments which were made for and against, and then we can add further arguments to it, whether in favor or in against. This is what is required for growth and enrichment and transformation of a nation. And this has to be brought back. This tradition requires to be brought back. The Nyayikas influenced almost all, and later on, the Nirishwara Sankhya became Sheshwara Sankhya. Mimamsaka also accepted God later on, we find. And ultimately, so this requires to be the method of discourse. That one thing, it was noticed in this dialogue of 1,000 years, Udayanacharya noticed one thing, and that gave birth to Navya Nyaya, that I am going to point it to you. It was noticed that the Buddhists are twisting statements of Nyaya. The statements were natural, Sanskrit, natural language, Sanskrit. And that keeps a scope for twisting. Once he identified that again and again we are clarifying, Gautama wrote, okay, Vatsyayana clarified, Uddyotakara clarified, Vachaspati Mishra clarified, Udayanacharya clarified, and still he is not convinced. Why? And still he is interpreting the same sentence in a different way. What allows him to do that? Maybe then there is a communication gap. Is it a case of a communication gap? What Nyaya wanted to communicate to the Buddhists, mainly the Buddhists were the participants. The main participants in the dialogue were the Buddhists. Others also joined. Udayanacharya realized that natural language keeps a scope for this ambiguity. And hence, there is a need to develop a language of discourse for precise communication. So, Udayanacharya should be given the credit of initiating Nyaya. That gave birth to the development of Nyaya language. So he felt a need. If I continue to communicate through the ordinary language provides a scope for different interpretations. And so what I wanted to communicate is not being communicated. So why not just develop a language through which, if I communicate, the participant can understand whatever I want him to know, and I will also understand what he wants me to know. And then perhaps we may arrive at the truth. All these dialogues were of the nature of vada, vada. And vada is defined as what? Vada is a discourse. The aim is only to arrive at the truth. Tattva bubhutsu katha. Katha is vada. Katha is a discourse. A discourse, but what is the aim of a discourse? To arrive at the truth. Tattva bubhutsu katha. Idealist philosophers like Buddhists and the Advaitins had a problem with language, since reality for them was beyond the reach of language. Now in the Upanishads you have sentences, avang manuso gochara. The reality is such that which is beyond mind, beyond language. Then how can you talk about that reality in language? And therefore a negative way. Is it the reality? No. Is it the reality? No. What is the reality? Can't say. Neti. Neti. Direct? No. Not possible. Why not possible? I am enlightened. I will give you. As against this position, so one position, any philosophy is built on presuppositions. And the presuppositions are all your worldviews. And therefore, if you have to understand the philosophy of a particular philosopher, it is necessary that you first know his worldview. Otherwise, you cannot. As against this, so this is clear. So language cannot capture reality. This is one position. Who? The idealists. Idealists are not compatible with language. As against this, the Nyayikas held that reality is that which is knowable and nameable. It's just opposite. It is beyond mind. Reality is beyond mind, beyond language. Reality is within mind, within language. Position. Language comes when? When I know. Language intervenes when I know. If I do not know, how can language come? So that if X is reality, X is to be known. So this is the definition of reality. That which is knowable and that which is nameable is real. That is a position taken by the Indian logicians. Nyayikas took this position. It is not the case that language has no capacity. Nyaya continues, he says. It is not the case that the Nyaya has no capacity of capturing reality. This is not true. Rather, it is the human limitation of knowing reality. If I know reality, no problem. Language will help me to communicate. If I do not know, language does not help. That's all. So the fault is not with the language. The difficulty is not with the language. The difficulty is with the knower. So if you know the reality, you can express that knowledge in language. once one knows, he or she can capture that in language. Thus, a verbalizable cognition, sabikalpaka jnana, that was the tug of war. Sabikalpaka jnana alone is verbalizable. Because a sabikalpaka jnana presents a structure of content. Dharma, dharmi, and a sambandha. This is the content of a sabikalpaka jnana. A qualifier, a qualificand, and a relationship between the two. Anything, any cognition which you can, if you say water, that means waterness. And where waterness exists is the locus, and the relation by which the waterness is in the locus is. These three is the structure of that content of sabikalpaka jnana. So, minimum requirement for language to operate is this. Language will come into play if and only if the knowledge presents a structured content. And that structured content has some kind of a property, and the locus of the property, and the relation to connect the located and the locus. Now suppose if you are Advaitin, can you buy this? Because the reality is one without a second. So there is no structure at all. If you are a Buddhist, can you afford this? No. Because Swalakshana is the reality. Swalakshana is Nama Jatyadi Rahita. And for Buddhists, these are all mental constructions. So all dharmas that you see, dharma is not really. Take any system, whether Alankara Shastra, or Sahitya Shastra, Kavya Shastra, or Mimamsa, or Vedanta, anything because they were all wanted to convey what they wanted to convey. And this was found to be so precise method of conveying. So all adopted that language for communication. And it continues to be even today in traditional Sanskrit institutions. So those Sanskrit Pathshalas that now we have today, the Pandits are using this language even today, so precise. They started focusing on process of knowing, therefore. So Navya Nyaya now, what is the focus has changed from issue to the process. So Prachina Nyaya, it was all issue that engaged them. And then Navya Nyaya, the process. So Pramana became. So it is a Pramana Pradhana Shastra. So Navya Nyaya Shastra is a Pramana Pradhana, therefore. 5 minutes, okay. Then run. They started focusing on the process of knowing and developed the technique of converting the natural language into Navya Nyaya language. I think all computer students will be interested in this. They also want to develop, and your goal is to have natural language processing. So how will you do that? Can you go away from your Aristotelian method, and can you adopt this method to achieve the same goal or not? Think over. The Navya Nyaya thus became epistemology-centric, Pramana Pradhana. Gangesha Upadhyaya of Mithila wrote Tattva Chintamani, which has 4 sections: Pratyaksha, Pramana, these are the processes, 4 processes: Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, and Shabda. I read out now simply. The worldviews of the Nyaya school and the school of Vaisheshikas have already merged. Now, the Sardarshanas were there in the beginning. So Nyaya was different from Vaisheshika. But over 1,000 years of, I say, debate, they found that the view of the Nyayikas are quite acceptable. So Jayanta Bhatta writes in his Nyayamanjari Vaisheshikaah tu asmad anuyayinah eva. They are all one for. So they have merged, they have accepted. So that has happened. And what happened is then, therefore, the Nyayikas also happily accepted what the contribution of Vaisheshika, namely modeling the whole universe through language. This was found so useful for the Nyayikas also. So the system became now Nyaya Vaisheshika system. The Navya Nyaya Nyayikas further pointed out that each morpheme, now sentence, captures a structured entity, I have already told you. They also discovered that some dharmas, now they focused on dharmas. So through dharma, name the dharmin. Through the located, you go to name the location or locus. This is the method. Now dharmas they started classifying. Some dharmas they found, Professor, come here. Some dharmas they found that they are intrinsic in nature. As long as the entity is there, the dharma will be there. But some dharmas come and go, come and go. I call them contextual, agantuka dharma. They come and go. They also discovered that the contextual properties can occur not in one place, but now for example, jalatva will be found only in jala. Vrikshatva will be found only in vriksha. Phalatva will be found only in phala. But these contextual properties may occur in more than one laws. For example, if I say a danda is a karana of a ghata, now dandatva will be in danda all along as long danda is there. But karanata will not be always there. So karanata is a contextual property. So they classified the contextual property and the intrinsic properties. The Nyayikas developed a device to achieve this goal. They introduced the concept of avachedaka. This is the method, the device through which preciseness was achieved. Now if I find that the karanata is found in many places, and if I am going to talk about the karanata in the stick, in the danda, what is the method to talk about karanata in danda? This method of avachedaka localized, specified the locus of that karanata about which you are talking. How to make it in language? Delimit that karanata by a property which is in the locus of that karanata. So the danda has a karanata, and in the same danda there is now dandatva. Dandatva, so wherever dandatva will be there. Through that dandatva, if you can delimit karanata, so karanata becomes dandatva avachinna. And that dandatva avachinna karanata cannot be in tantu. Tantu also can be a cause of cloth. So karanata also is in tantu. But the karanata in tantu is delimited by tantutva. The karanata in danda is delimited by dandatva. So by introducing this concept of avachedaka, they were successful in creating a language of precise communication. For that avachedaka, they accepted a property as avachedaka, desha as avachedaka, kala as avachedaka, and a relation as avachedaka. These are the different things for delimiting that location of that contextual property, because that was creating ambiguity. That is the scope of creation. So if you can localize it, you can pinpoint the locus of that, then perhaps your communication through language will become precise. They insisted on defining each and every concept, and by employing this method of precise communication, they demanded that if you are going to sit in a dialogue, whatever concept you are going to use, first you define it. And define it in this language. Now there is no problem. Everybody can follow that. And that is the reason that everyone adopted this language, and it was comfortable, even intra-systemic or even intrasystemic, extrasystemic dialogue. Intersystemic or intrasystemic dialogue was possible. Each and every entity in this world exists in itself. Now, another thing they pointed out, look at the universe. Each entity is discrete. Because we have to deal with this world. When I want fruit, I should not get water. So I have to distinguish water and fruit. So discreteness up to the final level should be maintained. Now, remember, that can be achieved if I say that each one is provided number one, Sankhya. And so, by that, anything is in itself by the relation of identity and different from all that what is not. So only two relations you accept. Relation of abheda, identity, and the relation of bheda. And use these two as a delimiter. You will be able to communicate precisely. These philosophers accepted one more type of relational. So they say the relation of difference again is of two types. Now we do not have time, friends, so you have to be satisfied with only narrations. So there are contact and inherence. These philosophers accepted one more type of relation called Swarupa Sambandha, which is very, very problematic. People think, but nothing is there in problematic. This is called self-linking relation. There is Ingalls, Matilal, they all started using this term of translation. Now, this is not a separate entity. We have seen that even relation should be part of the reality. In some cases, for example, absence. There is absence of this paper on this, let us say, if I say. So the absence and the paper of the table. What could be the relation? The relation cannot be any bhava padartha. You cannot say either Sangyoga or Samvaya. But there is a relation. How do you know? When I say this is related with this knowledge arises. The abhava now, not this, but abhava of this is related here. So whenever there is a vishishta jnana, savikalpaka jnana, three things I said. So you have to account for the relationship. So they needed some provision. So either pratiyogi or aniyogi. That which is related is called pratiyogi. And where it is related is called aniyogi. Is a relator, two relator. R is a relation. So A and B, and in the middle there is R. So A is called, if A is to be related, then A is called pratiyogi. If it is related to B, B is called aniyogi. And the relation is R in between. Okay? So, in some cases they found that nothing is available. So either A should perform a role of a relation. That is called Swarupa. Either Pratiyogi Swarupa or Aniyogi Swarupa. And they further discuss and bring down to relational abstracts. You can look into books of H.H. Ingalls for your reading in English, Materials for the Study of Nyaya, first book, and his student Matilal wrote Doctrine of Negation. There also he discusses all these things. You can read those books. General notion of relation is that it exists in two relata. Then there was another problem that what about identity relation? The relatum is only one. And still you say there is a relation. So dushtaha sambandha, that was the definition. So dushtatvam katham, when the identity is only one. So that problem was taken up and then that was discussed. We do not have time to do that. A number of self-linking relationships were accepted, such as karya karana bhava. This is what was identified. That these cases are creating ambiguity, problems, and different interpretations. And therefore identify those dharmas which are not swabhavika dharma but agantuka dharma, acquired properties, and they are not natural properties of this. So janya janaka bhava. So what you can do is bhava, you replace it by ta. So karya karana bhava. If you replace bhava by ta, and there are two constituents in the compound, no? Karya and karana. You add ta to both. You get karyata. and karanata. So karanata and karyata can become relationship. So through this they introduced this language. Through these devices, the Indian logicians achieved their goal of developing a precise language of communication. Nyaya believed that each sentence is an encoded thought. Language, now the attitude towards language also is changed now. What is language? Jnana purvakaha shabda vyaparaha. I speak, I write, before that I have jnana. So what is the ontology of a sentence? Sentence is encoded thought, encoded knowledge, encoded cognition. So if I analyze my sentence, what I am analyzing? I am analyzing my thought. So that method was adopted. So Nyaya believed that each sentence is an encoded thought. Language analysis, therefore, is an analysis of thought. Just 2 minutes, only 1 minute. Or the Navya Nyayikas also contributed to the method of decoding a sentence. It's a Shabdabodha Prakriya is a huge contribution they have made. And in that, others also participated, like Vyakarana, Mimamsaka, they all, it's a very rich area of study for you. Their Parishkara Paddhati is a wonderful method of improving definitions. So you start with a provisional definition and go on improving upon it. So they had a definition of a definition. They created a definition of a definition, and any definition that you want to develop must satisfy that definition of a definition. And therefore, a method called Parishkara Paddhati was adopted to introduce this Navya Nyaya language, and a perfect definitions were. So you have Purvaksha Vyapti Lakshana, Siddhanta Vyapti Lakshana, all that you will find. This is how the whole thing and I wanted to demonstrate one sentence, no? If 1 minute, if you have, I could have said it. Let us see how Navya Nyaya will expand a simple sentence, Bhutale Ghata Na, let us say. A simple sentence in Sanskrit, it means there is no pot on the ground. A simple natural language sentence. Now they will start creating language. Bhutala Nishtha, you see? Now, so Bhutale, the Saptami Vibhakti is giving you the Adhara kind of an idea, the Adhara. So Ghata is Adheya and Bhutale is Adhara. And now the language is created in this way, you can see. Bhutala Nishtha, Adharata Nirupita, Adheyatavan Ghata, Bhutale Ghata. If you say Bhutale Na Ghata, then Bhutala Nishtha, Adharata Nirupita, Adheyatavan Ghatabhava. Now Ghatabhava is Adheya. Now Ghatabhava itself we want to expand. You come to the real. So all informations encoded there will be revealed. So Ghatabhava, I will write is equal to Ghata Pratiyogika Abhava. Ghata is not Pratiyogi every time. Only in the context of Abhava, Ghata has become Pratiyogi. So Ghata Pratiyogika Abhava. Why do you call Ghata Pratiyogika Abhava? Because Ghatanistha Pratiyogita Nirupaka Abhava. Why I am talking of the Pratiyogita which is in Ghata? Further specify. Ghatatvava Chinna Ghatanistha Pratiyogita Nirupaka Abhava. In this way you go on expanding. And whatever you want to convey, if you have conceived it clearly, you can frame this language and you can communicate with your participant. And you can communicate whatever you want to communicate, and you can also understand whatever he wants to. So that became a precise language of discourse, and this is how the depth in understanding each other's worldviews became possible, and depth in epistemology, Indian epistemology, was acquired. Friends, as a student of Nyaya, I am still a student of Nyaya. And whatever little I have understood, I have told you, shared it you. If you find it useful, take it. If you do not find it, throw it. But I believe that it is useful, because I have seen that hundreds and hundreds of years this is in use. If your symbolic logic was a language of discourse, why should not Navya Nyaya language should become a medium of discourse. And it is proved that any system of thought comfortably could communicate, could take part in a dialogue through this language. I'm waiting for the scientists to make use of it and take the country further in this. That will be the real contribution of you all. Once again, I thank the organizers for giving this opportunity. Thank you all very much. I'm very sorry.
So, just a time for one question, quick question.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there are 4 ways of inquiry: direct perception, upamana, and Shabda Pramana. But so far as modern science is concerned, we give importance to direct perception.
I'm unable to. It's echoing. I can't know. Can you come a little closer to me? Now.
There are 4 ways of acquiring knowledge.
Yeah, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda.
So far as modern scientists were concerned, direct perception and indirect perception.
So Pratyaksha will be direct and the rest will be indirect. Pratyaksha will be direct and the rest will be Shabda, Anumana and Upamana will be indirect.
But indirect, Anumana is something we believe. Indirect.
No, Anumana is not direct. Suppose, just a minute. You see the fire with your eyes here. And now you take this fire from here and put in a bush. You have no contact with that fire now. But what is in contact with is the smoke which is oozing from the bush. No? So you are not seeing the fire, but you are seeing smoke. That is direct perception. But by knowing smoke, you can also know fire. So that is inference. That is indirect way of knowing. This is not direct way of knowing. This is not observation in your language.
No, I got that. My question is,
Yeah.
the direct perception and inference, so far as scientific community is concerned, we accept that. But Shabda Pramana, that is something.
I request you to spend some time in this. To know why Shabda should also be a method of knowing. This is what is called, that was the problem, we do not have time. Now, when a Shabda is what is Shabda? Therefore I told you. What is the definition of Shabda I have given you? Shabda is a sentence, no? A sentence is a verbalized knowledge. If you have known something correctly, you have encoded that knowledge into that sentence. Is not so? So I should decode it. And why should I not get at the same knowledge? Otherwise, how do you communicate? Then a scientist also speaking or not? Scientists also are listening or not? Are they all mithya?
Mathematical equation is also a Shabda.
I hope you get. You simply do not repeat what the Westerners are telling us. Just reflect. That Shabda, why should it be a source of knowing? Which Shabda will be a source of knowing? If that Shabda is an encoded thought of a Pramata. So Apta Vachana is Shabda. Apta is one who knows the truth. As a scientist, you also know the truth. So your sentence will be, if you say that Shabda does not tell the truth, then this sentence that the Shabda does not tell the truth is also a language or not. So you are also lying then in that case. So it's a very deep analysis. Spend some time in this and then come to a conclusion. Keep your mind open and you will come to the truth. You will know what the Nyayikas are telling, or what the Indian tradition is telling about Shabda as a Pramana. You will realize it. Anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jha. And I'm sure some of us, some of the science students will look at the Navya Nyaya, the logical part of it, especially which Professor Jha has pointed out, and compare this logic with the Western logic and see whether we can use this logic for, especially in natural language processing. So thank you very much, Professor Jha, for this.
You can also develop new logic.
Yes, definitely.
Need not be that everything should be put into that model
Yes,
only.
yes, but we can at least start with this and then take it further.
Right.
So
Thank you so much.
as a token of,
Oh, yeah.
so thank you very much. And now I invite Professor M.D. Srinivas, who is a theoretical physicist by training, but for almost 2 decades, he has been working on history and philosophy of science, looking at various texts, especially the Kerala mathematics, and he has contributed to the Indian tradition of science with 3 books: Contributions to the History of Indian Mathematics, then Ganita Yukti Bhasha recently he published, and he has also published a book, 500 Years of Tantra Sangraha, on which he will also be giving the tutorial. He is at present chairman of the Center of Policy Studies at Chennai, and he has been member of various important bodies such as the INSA Advisory Board on History of Science, then Indian National Commission for History of Science, and also Indian Council for Historical Research. He was also vice chairman of the prestigious Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and member of Central Sanskrit Board. So I invite Professor Srinivas.